Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just 1 second. Hello, welcome. My name is Mario Fernandez y Mora, and I am the Associate State Director of Clean Water Action Massachusetts.
And I'm Paulina Casasola, our climate justice organizer. We'll be the MCs for this event, and we are so happy to be here with you all today. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. Please make sure that your microphone stays muted. We'll be interacting throughout this program using the chat. Also, this event is designed to be viewed using speaker view. If you're having any problems with Zoom, please reach out in the chat and one of our awesome staff members will help you out.
Speaking of the chat, please introduce yourself. We've got folks calling in from all over Massachusetts and a few from a bit further away. When you're introducing yourself in the chat, we encourage you to let us know where you're from and who the original inhabitants of that place were and are. For example, our office is in so-called Boston, resides on Massachusetts territory, and our office in so-called Northampton is on Nipmuc land. If you don't know who the original inhabitants of the land you're on today were and are, you can click the link that Annie just shared in the chat and type in your address to find out. We do this because we recognize that Indigenous people, although they comprise less than 5% of the world population, protect 80% of the Earth's biodiversity. Native people are water protectors, environmental leaders, and hold deep essential knowledge for how to move away from the legacy of colonization, including unsustainable growth and extraction of the Earth's resources. Those of us who care about the environment have a responsibility to recognize Indigenous people, their struggle, and their leadership past and present. Also, we know that after a year of virtual everything, everyone is probably zoomed out, so thanks for sticking with us. We've added a few components to make this year's event as interactive as possible. We're going to be using Mentimeter.com for a couple of interactive activities during our opening remarks. You can type in this URL and code on your phones or computers so that you're ready to participate when we start that. If you're using your phone, you can also scan the QR code that we just put that link into. And once you're in, you can send a thumbs up or a heart to let us know that you're able to access that. Awesome, see a few reactions. If you had any trouble, reach out in the chat and don't worry because we'll share the URL and code again when it's time to participate. Finally, during that last half hour, oh, sorry, on to Paulina.
No, you're good. Yeah, so at the end of the event, we'll have a number of breakout rooms to choose from. Please be thinking about which room you'd like to join. This will be like the last half hour, as Mario said. You can look at descriptions of each breakout room and follow along with the run of show by clicking the link in the chat, which will take you to our virtual program book.
Now, with that, thank you, Paulina. With that out of the way, let's dive in. It has apparently been one whole year since the last time we were here together. I don't know about you, but last year feels like both a week and a lifetime ago. So much has changed and will keep changing. Now more than ever, we're seeing an unprecedented number of fires, floods, and changing weather patterns that are impacting us all, but especially frontline communities. And we're seeing that the impact is not equal. Low-income communities, communities of color, and immigrant communities have been and will continue to be disproportionately impacted by climate disruption, as well as illness from pollution and toxic sources. We're living through turbulent times, and we believe that part of being able to keep fighting is also making room for us to be human, to acknowledge that this is hard and scary.
Hello.
We also know that what seems impossible when staring at alone becomes so much easier when we carry the burden together. So with that in mind, we're going to ask everyone to join us in a brief visual exercise so we can see what each of us has been carrying and remember that whatever it is, we don't have to do it alone. Please type in Mentimeter.com on your phones or computers, and you'll see a prompt that asks you to describe this last year in 3 words. It can be good or bad, or that strange in between. We're here to witness each other. And maybe we go back to the last slide just because it looks like folks haven't had a chance to log in. Awesome. So you can type that in and yep, menti.com and enter in that code. You can also scan the QR code. All right, looks like we've got some folks ready. So let's move to the next slide. Tiring, I definitely resonate with that. Yeah, experienced a lot of growth. No Trump. Yeah, this year was tough on every level. But if this past year has been a year filled with challenges, then it's also been a year filled with the promise of change. And change is why we're here today. Not to worry, grieve, or despair, but to reflect on the victories we continue to stack up and pull those threads together into a map to the kind of world that we want us and future generations to enjoy. And that map exists. It exists because every one of us continues to wake up every day and choose optimism over despair and action over apathy. While I might be biased, I believe that it's working. We've had some big wins this year, so let's take a moment to celebrate some of them. We encourage you to interact in the chat and use Zoom reactions to applaud our collective efforts. I don't know if anyone remembers, but we had some elections last year. In addition to mobilizing our phone canvases to get as many people out to the polls for the 2020 presidential election, we worked to deliver a number of victories for Massachusetts candidates at the state and national level. 13 out of the 15 candidates that we endorsed were elected or re-elected into office, including U.S. Senator Ed Markey and Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Jim McGovern. It is essential that we keep electing pro-environment candidates so that we can work to pass policies at all levels that protect the environment and public health, especially for our most vulnerable communities. Speaking of policy, we kicked off 2021 with a true landmark victory. After 8 years, the Children and Firefighters Protection Act, a bill that bans toxic flame retardant chemicals in a variety of children and household products, was signed into law. It's been a good year, or perhaps the chemical industry would say a bad one, for toxic chemicals in general. This year, McDonald's, the world's largest fast food company, announced that it would be phasing PFAS out of food packaging. We're talking tons of PFAS-laden garbage that will no longer find its way into landfills, threatening water sources and causing serious harm to the health of frontline communities near those landfills and incinerators, including communities like Saugus right here in Massachusetts. And we're keeping that pressure up as we continue to partner with safer states and target individual corporations to push the industry as a whole to eliminate PFAS. We're also targeting the chemical industry at the state level. After passing one of the strongest drinking water standards in the country for PFAS in drinking water last year, we've been putting all of our efforts on PFAS into 4 bills that ban these toxic forever chemicals in a variety of products. By eliminating PFAS at the source before it can ever touch water, soil, or air, we will make it so that future communities don't need to worry about cleaning up PFAS in drinking water because it won't be there in the first place. And we're still getting lead out of drinking water. This summer, we were finally able to hit the streets again and conduct a door-to-door education campaign in Malden, notifying people who are connected to lead service lines in the area and telling them what they can do in the short and long term to protect themselves from this toxic heavy metal.
Finally, climate disruption is here, and it's growing by the day, but so are the numbers of people who are willing to stand up and fight for an equitable fossil fuel-free future. We started the year up with a huge victory, the passage of an act creating a next generation roadmap for Massachusetts climate policy, which establishes new interim goals for emission reductions and allows the Commonwealth to procure an additional 2,400 megawatts of clean, reliable offshore wind energy by 2027. It will also increase the state's outreach efforts to environmental justice communities related to siting and permitting of any projects that could negatively impact communities' members' health. The bill details the need for increased participation from communities of color and low-income families. In addition, it requires timely public notices, translation services, and accessible information for these communities. And just a couple of weeks ago, on October 6, 2021, the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance became law after a unanimous vote from Boston City Council. Verda 2.0 requires the largest buildings to meet increasingly aggressive emission targets over time, with no carbon offset options, putting them on the path to net zero carbon performance by 2050. The outcome alone is impressive, but the process was a victory in and of itself. This summer, the Green Justice Coalition, of which Clean Water is a proud member, met with city councilors to demand that community stakeholders have a leading role in the process. And the city obliged by mapping multifamily buildings impacted by the ordinance, identifying affected districts, and contacting active community partners. The outreach materials were multilingual, with workshops held in up to 5 languages, where attendees were compensated for their time and expertise. To me, this is a glimpse into the exact future we're fighting for, where people come together to come up with solutions that keep us all safe and connected. I know you all have visions for the future too, and that you care about them deeply enough to stay connected to us at Clean Water as things just keep getting busier all the time. So with that in mind, please join me for our next interactive exercise. If you type in the same code as before that is showing in the screen right now, you will see a question that asks you to describe the future you want to see in 3 words. And as you see other streams come to life, notice how aligned we are and how much bigger these concepts become when we join together. So 3 words to describe the future you're fighting for. Equitable, clean, compassionate, healthy. We all want to feel safe.
Love seeing healthy and equitable right at the center.
Yes.
You all have so many dreams. Thank you, Paulina, and everyone for participating. This is the kind of future we want to live in, one where we're not separate, but deeply connected to ourselves, the earth, and each other, where we prioritize people over profit, democracy for all, and clean air, clean water for everyone, no matter the color of your skin, how much money you make, or your zip code. You all make us believe in that future and keep us fighting for it every single day. Our victories are yours, and our struggle is the same. With that, before we get into our program, I'd like to thank a few of the people who fight for this kind of a future every day. We have some legislators in the room: Representative Sean Garbely, Representative Jessica Giannino, Senator Will Brownsberger, and Senator Jamie Eldridge. And we'll continue to recognize legislators as they roll in. We also want to thank our advisory board members: Jeremy Schenk, Elijah Romulus, Lynn Nadeau, Lee Kettleson, Ellie Goldberg, Sue Phelan, Steve Seymour, Sarah Moffett, Mary Elizabeth Lampert, and finally Margot Barnett, who will introduce our keynote speaker and longtime Clean Water friend and changemaker, Congressman Jim McGovern, who as we speak is probably taking important votes on the floor. So whenever he's ready to join us, we'll turn our program back over to him. But for now, I would like to introduce our State Director, Elizabeth Saunders, who will be giving our first award of the night.
Thank you, Moreo. It works better if I unmute. We are so glad to be here tonight. It's so great to see so many people joining us for this event. And so again, I'm Elizabeth Saunders. I'm the Massachusetts Director for Clean Water Action, and I'm really excited to kick off our 20th annual, if you can believe it, John O'Connor Awards. Johnny O was a local and national treasure in the environmental health movement who died in 2001 at a young age. Among other things, he helped lead efforts to pass Superfund legislation, and at one point was a clean water community organizer. He was known for his unique spirit, for his love of organizing, for his love of the canvassers who work to build community power one person at a time. And he was known for his mantra, "The fun is in the fight."
Fun is in the fight.
Thank you, Margot. Every year we present awards to people who embody John's determination, commitment, and courage. The leaders who we will honor today carry his legacy and spirit on, whether they knew him or not. So today's event, we are all about capturing the spirit of being in person and togetherness. So for each award, we're actually going to spotlight a team of folks to surround our awardees with love, even while we have just one or two presenters. So let's kick off the first award. I am beyond thrilled to present the 20th annual John O'Connor Award for Canvassing to Steve Turner. If you're not familiar with our canvassing program, it's the backbone of clean water. Field canvassers go door to door year-round to recruit and organize our members. Steve was actually also the first recipient of this award in 2002 because of his then 15-year tenure as a canvasser in the Northampton office. Well, Chris Bathurst had hired him in 1987, and Steve retired from canvassing last year when COVID shut down our office. So that adds up to 33 years. In the canvas, we're all about statistics. And while it's impossible to exactly quantify the impact that Steve made over all of those years, here's some estimates. We think that he might have knocked on 400,000 doors, signed up 66,000 members, raised $1.2 million, organized 13,200 letters to decision makers, and supervised, trained, and mentored somewhere between 300 or 400 staff, including people who have now gone into leadership in the organization, for example, Moreo and Ian, our Northampton Canvas Director. But beyond the statistics, Steve is just an incredibly warm, smart, and caring human being. He has been called a legend by staff from other offices. Chris described him as the Yoda of the Clean Water Action Field Canvas staff. And our members really miss him. He built incredible relationships with people who he visited year after year when he'd show up at their doors with his classic line, "I'm here working for the wacky notion that water is worth protecting." So Ian has described what it's been like canvassing neighborhoods since that Steve used to canvass. He has to start his rap now with, "You're probably used to Steve," and then reassure them that Steve is okay, and then answer their detailed questions about his health and his life, and then he can go on to talk about the issues. So Ian and I were joking the other day that over the years, Steve knocked on fewer and fewer doors in a night, but raised more and more money and spent more and more time sitting on the couches of our members who had now become his old friends. So Steve, you are one of my heroes. I and all of us miss you deeply, and you always have a place in the Clean Water family. Congratulations on your second John O'Connor Award for Canvassing. We love you. So you're welcome to unmute and respond. We're working on the tech. Fantastic.
Now you're unmuted.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Yeah, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right, really good. Thank you, Alicia, as my tech support for just about everything here. All right, I just, boy, you know, gee, 1 to 2 minutes. What am I gonna say, 1 to 2 minutes? You know, I didn't set out, when I was young, and that was a long time ago, my first canvassing job before I got to Clean Water Action, I was 25 years old, and yeah, I didn't think this is going to be my life's work. I did not think at the time that this was something I was going to care about so much that I was going to basically spend over half my life doing. You know, I didn't think that, but as I got into campaign work and then I moved to different organizations, and then when I got to Clean Water Action, a lot of things clicked. I love the program, the work that the offices were doing, the creativity of the campaigns. You know, Clean Water had a great reputation outside of Clean Water Action in activist circles. And people said, "Oh, you're going to really like it over there." And, you know, and I don't know. I just suited up, went out, canvassed one day at a time, and just kept doing it as I used to tell people, I says, I just keep canvassing until I find something better, and I never did. After all the years of canvassing, I enjoyed the relationships I met with the people in the fields who would recognize me, and we would be on a hug basis and things like that. And all the people that have come through the canvas over the years that, many of whom I still have relationships with
Jeff
outside.
Nixon, there he is.
What's that?
Oh my God.
Okay, is that it? No, okay. Anyway, I just I'll tie things up. I'm probably taking up too much time, but thank you all very much. It's been a privilege to have spent a big chunk of my life doing this, and I will always remember the people at Clean Water Action. And you're all right here, and you will all be all right here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. So, and I hope that after you're not spotlighted, you check out the chat for the huge amount of appreciation that's coming to you in the chat. So check that out after. And I think now I'm going to get to turn it over to Paulina to present the next award.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our next awardee, Mary Wambui Cup. Mary is a kind and fearless equity advocate. She currently represents residents at the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council and has tirelessly fought for energy justice for many years in Massachusetts. Mary, just a few days ago at the last EEAC meeting, I had the opportunity to hear you advocating for transparency and accountability once more. And I was reminded we should not give up in this fight. It's been an honor to work alongside you for the past few months to ensure an equitable 3-year energy efficiency plan for Massachusetts. Thank you for putting your heart and passion in all you do. You give us all hope. And we partner in this work with the Green Justice Coalition. So now I'd like to introduce Andrea Nemenche from Neighbor to Neighbor, who would like to share a few words.
Thanks, Paulina, and hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Nemenche, and I'm the Associate Director of Neighbor to Neighbor. And it's been such a pleasure working alongside Mary for, I think now 2 iterations of the 3-year plan that has happened at the EEAC. And Neighbor to Neighbor and all of the Green Justice Coalition partners would really like to thank you, Mary, for your powerful and persistent voice, focusing on equity above all in our state's energy efficiency program. We would simply not have made as much progress towards our shared goals without your fierce leadership, and we are extremely, extremely grateful to have your voice on the council. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Andrea. And with that, I present you the recipient of the 2021 Joan O'Connor Grassroots Leadership Award, Mary Wambui Cup.
Thank you so much. I am an affordable housing advocate, and I actually mostly do most of my work on poverty reduction and economic empowerment. But a few years ago, I realized that energy bills were crashing most of the people that came to the organizations that I work for help. And I got engaged in energy efficiency and climate change work. I originally come from Kenya, and most of you would recognize Wangari Maathai. She was my hero when I was a little girl. So I work in her spirit and fierceness to see things done in a just and a fair manner. I just want to say that it's with great humility that I accept this award. I have not been able to do most of the things that we have done, especially in the past 1 year by myself. I have had a lot of help from the Green Justice Coalition, Clean Water Action, and many other people that I can see here, Alex Papali, and many others. I am hoping that in my lifetime, energy language will be very easy. Everybody in the streets would be able to understand kilowatts, megawatts. It would just be very easy for everybody. And in the words of Pope Francis, listen to the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. They are the ones who suffer the most because of the unbalanced ecology. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mary.
I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing the recipient of our 2021 Youth Leadership Award, Essence Perry. Essence came on board in June of 2020 when she applied for one of our summer internships. I remember nerding out with her in the interview about the importance of intersectionality in policy and advocacy, how systems impact the individual level, and how to deepen ties across different justice movements so that we can bring in a more just and sustainable future. She ended up taking a lot more than she bargained for, and really ended up anchoring our elections work at a time when we as a staff were much more under capacity than we would have liked. We would not have been able to pull off what we did without her. She processed all of our elections questionnaires, organized the information for our elections committee, took the communications and really ran with it, creating beautiful graphics highlighting our endorsed candidates that really permanently raised our communication standards for elections work. And she really just helped make one of our most critical election years ever a success. Needless to say, we really wanted to keep working with her after her internship ended, so we asked her to join our elections committee, and she said yes. Since then, she's kept pushing the question of how we look at racial justice and economic justice at the forefront of our decision-making processes in elections work. And as the youngest and newest member of our elections committee, she has not been afraid to charge forward and make her voice heard in ways that have enriched discussions and changed outcomes of our elections decisions. I'm going to quote Elizabeth directly, who earlier today said, "I think the conversations that happened in our last elections round are going to change the way we do elections work forever." I will also point out that she has recently started a podcast. And if you are a fan of friendship, interesting political discussion, and lots of wholesome laughter, I suggest you check it out by searching Common Room Couch on Spotify or going to commonroomcouch.com. In short, Essence, you are brilliant, diplomatic, and extremely driven, and we are so lucky to have gotten to know you and keep you close as a Clean Water member. It's been such a pleasure and an honor supervising you, and I'm so glad that you want to keep being part of the Clean Water family. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. The bells are ringing in the background. Sorry, but I feel like they're actually perfect. Thank you all so much. You guys grounded me in a summer that was so weird. I was home at that time, and I felt like I was part of the team, even when I was virtually interacting with you all. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on environmental work and ground it in issues that I had already kind of spent time working on, but realizing there's so much more that I could do and more that I could, deeper ways that I could think about these issues. So I just encourage any young people that are here to keep fighting, and people really want to hear our voices, and nothing is going to change without us. So I just encourage everyone to keep pushing, keep fighting, and who cares if you're too loud or too pushy, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Thank you again, and it's so great to see you all.
We're just having a transparent facilitation moment. Congressman McGovern has joined us, so I think we're going to pause our awards program. And I'm going to hand it over to our fantastic board member from Worcester, Margot Barnett.
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm extremely honored to get to do this intro of my Congressman, Jim McGovern, who has championed environmental sustainability and justice his entire career in the House of Representatives. You know, you said that Steve was like Yoda. Well, when Jim first ran, we had a campaign picture that we all thought looked like the Lorax. So you kind of think Jim looks a little bit like the Lorax. So we started calling him the Lorax because even back then we knew he was an environmental champion. Besides being the chair of the Powerful Rules Committee and a member of the Agricultural Committee in the House, he's a member of the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition. And I'll tell you about something he did in his very first term, which was kind of an amazing thing because everybody thought that nobody could do this. But he actually championed and shepherded the reauthorization of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which had kind of fallen by the wayside for a number of years. And Jim actually rounded up enough people to, and that was back then when things weren't quite so partisan. So he was able to round up enough people to get that really important piece of legislation reauthorized, which is one of the primary ways that land gets protected and that recreational opportunities for all kinds of people get protected. So that was a really big deal. And he did that way back when he was first in the House, before he learned that people thought he couldn't do it. He's been an outspoken proponent of a Green New Deal. He never fails to be outspoken for all aspects of justice, including standing up against things like pipeline development. So I don't know how many people can truly say that their member of Congress is their friend, but I can. And I am delighted to introduce my friend for over 25 years, my Congressman, Jim McGovern, the chair of the House Rules Committee.
Well, first of all, thank you, Margot, for the generous introduction, and to everybody on the line. I love Margot. So Margot just heaped all this praise on me. She has been a committed activist for all the years I've known her, and even before, and has made a real difference in our community. And so she and her husband David are good friends, but I truly respect and admire them for what they stand for. And you know, they not only talk the talk, they walk the walk. And so it's great to be with everybody. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm in the Library of Congress. I'm at an event in the Library of Congress, and they gave me this room. So you see behind me all these books. So I feel really smart in this room that I'm in right now. But I want to thank you all for inviting me to join in your fall celebration. And congratulations to the evening's award recipients. I'm sorry I kind of was airdropped in and disrupted the awards, but congratulations to all of you. And let me just say at the very outset here how grateful I am for all the work that you do. Change does not happen on its own. I used to have a history professor who used to end every class by saying the same thing. He used to say, the world will not get better on its own. And I didn't really quite appreciate what he was talking about when I was taking his class, but I do now. Nothing good, nothing positive happens or changes without like-minded people coming together and demanding that change and working for that change. You know, and I, you know, appreciate your advocacy. Look, Clean Water Action and I go back a long way to my very first campaign. And when Margot will remember that when I was running in 1996, I was not given a chance at all to win by the establishment, by the political pundits, by the know-it-alls. And in any event, I won. Lightning struck, I won. And I remember a few weeks later, I was in a supermarket and a woman came up to me and said, I voted for you. And I was like, great, you know. She said, aren't you gonna ask me why? I said, well, why? Why did you vote for me? And she said, well, I maybe thought she was gonna say you gave a great speech, or, you know, I liked your position paper, whatever. She said, one evening, it was a couple of weeks before the election, on a cold and drizzly night, this young woman knocked on my door and she said, I'm with Clean Water Action. And she said, so well, what can I do for you? She said, well, I'm here to talk about Jim McGovern, who's running for Congress. But I want to talk to you about him because of his stand on the Clean Water Bill. And at that time, the Republicans were trying to rewrite the Clean Water Act, and they dubbed it the Dirty Water Act. That's how they were trying to change it. And she said, and this young girl, young woman, spent, 15 minutes with soggy literature, because it was drizzling out, making the case why we need to vote for people based on their environmental records or what they promised to do in the environment, and informed me about a whole bunch of things that, quite frankly, I wasn't really thinking about. I invited her in for a cup of tea, which, by the way, if you're canvassing, you probably shouldn't go in somebody's house. But anyway, she went into the house for a cup of tea, and the conversation continued. And she said, when that young woman left, she says, I said to my husband, I'm voting for McGovern. And he said, well, why are you voting for McGovern? She says, if this young woman, who braved this drizzly, cold night, thought it was important enough to come and educate me about the Clean Water Act and about the attack on the Clean Water Act and about how important it was to care about the environment, you know what? I'm going to give him my vote because of her. And I tell that story because, that's how change happens. It's very personal. It's door to door. It's person to person. It's like that young woman approaching this other woman and making the case and helping to raise awareness. And through raising awareness, she decided, you know what, this is important. I got to support McGovern. So in many ways, we're kind of a long ways from that original campaign and that original, when I first became aware of Clean Water Action, this is kind of a different moment now, but some of our problems, like climate change, have compounded and the sense of urgency has only grown. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change just reminded us that the window for getting to net zero is closing quickly. Incrementalism isn't going to cut it anymore. And on other issues, we've been able to broaden our focus by building community across movements, which has been very helpful in a lot of what we've tried to push forward. For example, we now have a critical mass of people who understand that every environmental issue is a justice issue too. The burdens of pollution and the climate crisis do not fall evenly on everyone in this country. The truth is, this has always been the case. Frontline and downstream communities have the most to lose from continuing the status quo. And these communities must have a seat at the table. And I think there's been a growing recognition of that. And you have been part of moving us in that direction. But the biggest thing that has changed is the one that many people don't realize, but it's also been the most encouraging. It's this. These things we've been fighting for: clean water, clean air, a more just and sustainable food system, a habitable planet, have become mainstream. They're overwhelmingly popular with the public. They're foundational aspects of the Democratic Party's platform. They're non-negotiables. And that's a monumental shift. And this was not inevitable. I cannot emphasize that enough. It didn't just happen. This broad acceptance is not just the natural endpoint of the passage of time. It's what happens when you build a movement. And just this week, the EPA laid out its intentions to take action on PFAS, the forever chemicals. And all I can say is this: it's about time. And it should have been considered, and it should be considered the first of many steps that need to be taken. Some of my colleagues and I have been pushing the new administration for months to recognize the scale of the contamination crisis. And I do think that it's helped to shape their ambitions. But let me be clear: for every member of Congress, the administration, for every member of Congress, the administration heard an earful from, they also heard from countless ferocious advocates. And I believe that that's what really moved the needle. It's not my power of persuasion, it's your powers of persuasion. We certainly have our work cut out for us, and now is not the time to let up to pressure. We're on the verge of enacting a transformational agenda, but there are no guarantees. It won't happen on its own. We need to stay engaged. We need to keep the pressure up, to not take no for an answer, and we need to hold people accountable. Because the truth is, while I'd love to think that Congress leads the way, don't tell anybody, but we don't. All the great movements that changed the status quo came from the grassroots, up through the neighborhoods, cities and towns, building movements and coalitions. it's that kind of movement that forces change at the top. So I look forward to being wind at your back in Washington, just as you are at mine. I hope that you're able to take some time to enjoy and celebrate tonight and to recognize the achievement of these award recipients. And tomorrow, let's get right back to work. Let me just close. Margot mentioned the Land and Water Conservation Fund, but here's an example of your power and your influence. You know, I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't know everything. And so I get elected in large part because of the advocacy of groups like Clean Water Action. But I really didn't know very much about the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It was after I got elected when Clean Water's Action's work was not done. I mean, they helped get me elected because of what I believe, but then it was, let's educate him. Let's make sure he knows what the hell he's doing. Let's make sure he's actually worth all of our effort. And so I was educated about the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House at the time. He zeroed out the program, eliminated it entirely. And Clean Water Action and a few other environmental organizations got together and persuaded me to be a champion and to try to get the money back in the appropriations bill. I did, and much to my surprise, I won, but it was because of the grassroots advocacy that occurred all across the country. So getting good people elected is not when the job ends, it's when the job begins. And so to everybody on this call, to those who are being honored, thank you, thank you, thank you. Margot, I love you, and I'm happy to be with you tonight.
Thank you,
Okay.
Congressman.
Well, Congressman, we are such huge fans of yours here. It's an honor to have you jump out of your event and spend this time with us. We deeply appreciate it. And what a big, beautiful crowd we have tonight. Wonderful people just keep coming in. I want to say a special thank you to some public officials who've joined us. Hello and thank you, Senator Michael Moore, greetings. And pardon us, Brent Bazelak, man from the Haverhill Environmental League. Not only are you a state level Clean Water Action Board member, you are the Massachusetts representative on the national board. So we appreciate your presence and everything you do for us and have for decades. I now have the very distinct honor of recognizing Mark Breslow tonight. My name is Cynthia Lupi, and I am the New England Director for Clean Water Action. Mark is one of the rarest of creatures. He's a talented PhD economist with not only a big, beautiful brain, but a big heart and soul as well. Mark's achievements are many, and he's used his academic brilliance to great ends throughout his career. On top of his work at publications like Dollars and Cents, he ultimately went on to galvanize a climate movement as co-founder of the Mass Climate Action Network. And Mark, some of your friends, actually many of your friends from MCAN and other parts of your work are here tonight. And it's a big, beautiful, beautiful Mark fan club. While he was at MCAN, Mark led the charge to push for a polluter pay auction-based framework within the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which inspired other jurisdictions from California to the EU to follow suit. After several years empowering grassroots leaders, he joined the ranks of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs and led the drafting of one of the state's most thorough climate plans. And as so very many of you on this call know, as part of the founding team for Climate Exchange, he used his brilliance and expertise to investigate and research and lift up so many unknown truths about carbon pricing models, and particularly to lift up equity with his heart and his commitment to the most vulnerable among us clearly on display. I know I speak for so many here when we say, thank you, Mark, for tirelessly working for a better and more just future. And I'm so proud that we can recognize you tonight with this Lifetime Achievement Award. Please join me in thanking Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, Mark, you can take it away.
Thank you so much to Clean Water Action for giving me this award, and to Cindy for that introduction. I've worked for more than 20 years with Clean Water Action and been very proud to do it. And all that time it's been with Cindy Lupi, and I'm very proud to have been working with her all these years. Clean Water Action has been at the forefront for climate justice and clean air in New England. I started my work on climate in 1999 when two of us began organizing the town-based groups that the following year merged to form Massachusetts Climate Action Network. As Cindy mentioned, I think my greatest accomplishment was leading the effort to have the emission permits under the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative sold to electric generators. This polluter pays principle, which I don't know if Cindy or Clean Water originated that term, but it's a great term, has led to hundreds of millions of dollars being used for clean energy. And I'm very proud to have been part of making that happen. Back in those days, which was about 2005, climate action was just budding as a field of activist endeavor. The international goal became a 50% reduction in global warming gases by 2050. Today, after more than 20 years of widespread activism, and after increasing evidence of the dangers that climate change means for everyone's health and well-being, the world has recognized that rising temperatures, droughts, worsening storms, fires, etc., are a primary threat to all of us. And I'm very proud and satisfied that over the past 20 years, we've gone from being a budding field of activism toward being kind of worldwide acceptance. And that's gotten us to the goals we have today, where Massachusetts has adopted a goal of cutting emissions 50% by 2030, 20 years ahead of where we were supposed to get it to, and 100% net reduction by 2050. That's a lot of progress in 20 years. And I think we can all be proud of having gotten the legislature and governor to this point. I will say that the administration reported last week that it will release a plan for how it's going to get to that 2030 goal next July. But the reality is that the interim plan they released last year was rather inadequate, I think. And we have much work ahead of us to get Governor Baker to adopt the policies needed to achieve that 50% goal. Those steps include, and you won't be surprised to hear this from me, expanding carbon pollution pricing beyond electricity to all sectors of the economy. So I leave you with that thought, and thank you again for bestowing this honor on me. I look forward to seeing Clean Water Action continue to lead the fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and congratulations. In fact, congratulations to all of our awardees. What an incredible group of people we get to work with in doing our jobs every day here at Clean Water. It's so lucky. So Steve, Mary, Essence, and Mark, thank you for everything that you do. I would like to give a few other quick thank yous, starting with the incredible Clean Water Action Massachusetts staff team. So if we can bring a few of those folks up. You've already met Paulina, Moreo, and Cindy, but I'd also like to introduce Laura Spark, who is our Senior Policy Advocate, Ian Hipp, who is our Northampton Canvas Director, Annie Larson, who is our Communications and Zero Waste Intern, Angie Pham, who is our communications intern, and by the way, also created the incredible program book that you've been seeing posted in the chat, or hope you should look through and find those links if it's been buried by all the appreciations. Maybe Angie can throw another one up right now, but it's beautiful, and Angie put a ton of work into it, so check it out. Amber Schmidt, who is our Providence Canvas director. And last but not least, special thanks to Bethany Dickerson, our Northampton office manager, who has been running tech for this event, which, as you have seen, has been no small feat. So thank you to all of you. What an incredible team. It's really great to work with you every single day. And I have some more thank yous. I want to give a huge thank you to each and every one of you who contributed to this event. Especially to our leader and champion sponsors, who I think we are in a moment gonna display, show a slide where you can see them all. Two of these generous donors together contributed a $20,000 matching gift. So we set out to raise $20,000 more for a total of $40,000. That would have been a record-breaking event for us. Thanks to all of you, we blew right past that goal. And so then we set a new goal of raising $60,000. And then thanks to all of you, we blew right past that goal. And so as of this morning, we have raised just over $73,000 to fight for our health and our communities and our future. So thank you to every single one of you who contributed. But now I'm going to ask you to help us achieve our next goal. 2022, as we have alluded to a couple times, is election year. To win the changes that each and every one of us here today want to see in the world, we need pro-environment, pro-justice candidates elected to office. Without that important piece of the puzzle, all of the fantastic organizing in the world will run into brick walls right and left at the State House, the governor's office, and Congress. You've heard about the power of Clean Water Action's election organizing from Congressman McGovern and from Essence's great work. We're already starting to organize and plan for the 2022 elections now. We have the capacity to make a big difference in critical races here in Massachusetts. And we need to know that we can count on your support for Clean Water Action, and that we are going to have the resources to build the election program that can win big in 2022. So right now, Cindy is going to put a link in the chat, and I am going to ask every one of you to do one thing right now. Go to the link that Cindy is sharing and sign up for a monthly gift to Clean Water Action. A monthly donation will help us know that we can count on your support through Election Day so that we can focus on endorsing candidates, knocking doors, and contacting voters rather than fundraising. You've already been amazing, and let's look ahead to 2022 and give just a bit more right now. Thank you to everyone for your support, and thanks for being part of our team that's going to help us win big next year. So I'm going to turn it back over to Paulina, who's going to take us to the next phase of our event, which we're very excited about.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now we have an exciting part of the program in which we are going to try to recreate some of the wonderful times that happen at our in-person events. We have breakout rooms with themes related to different topics and campaigns, and we will have 4 different options. So breakout room number 1's theme is intergenerational climate conversation, looking back at 30 years of advocacy and the next 30 to come. Room number 2 is about what makes us win. Breakout room number 3's theme is thinking forward towards elections, and room number 4 will be a general conversation rooms for folks to chat and connect. So right now, look for the breakout rooms logo in your meeting controls right at the bottom. It has 4 squares. Click that icon and you should be able to choose from the 4 rooms and click join. Or you can also type in the chat which room you want to go to, and our fabulous tech team will assist you to the room of your choice. If you need to switch rooms, come back to the main room and then we'll help you out. And then we'll come back here at 6